Hello again, everybody. Welcome back. I hope you are doing well. And today I just wanted to talk about some of the things that have come up throughout this recovery process that I really wasn't expecting, that I hadn't heard about, or that just have been like the little issues that I feel like I probably haven't talked a lot about in the other recovery videos, but I've kind of just like been on my mind or kind of just been a little bit challenging throughout the whole process. Nothing that is like super concerning or like a really big piece of the recovery process, but just some of these little things that kind of have added up over this whole time to, I guess, just make it feel a little bit harder. Or again, it was just things that I was not aware of that could happen, and or maybe they're just happening to me. I don't know. I mean, this is just my experience. So just wanted to address some of the things that I've been noticing over the last several weeks, or even since the beginning of the recovery, that just sort of came up that were a little surprising, or that have been just things that I've had to deal with throughout this whole time that I haven't talked about very much yet. So the first thing that I've been noticing more so lately is kind of how my bite fits together. When I had the rubber bands on, which I wear all the time unless I'm eating, but when I take them off, my it's like my top and bottom teeth almost kind of hit together a little bit. Like it doesn't sit as comfortably as it does when I have the rubber bands on, and it's kind of holding everything in place. And I'm sure that has to do with just not being totally recovered and still having some inflammation and tension and everything. I was told that it could be, all the way until I'm done with the orthodontics before I feel like I can really chew correctly and everything. So it's not something that I'm worried about or that anybody has, said is an issue right now. And I'm sure it just has to do with, getting back into the orthodontic treatment and just making sure everything fits correctly. But it just was, I think I was expecting that kind of having the surgery that like it was going to put everything into the perfect place and that was just going to be it. I'm realizing that the healing process is a lot longer, and part of that process is kind of getting my bite to settle in the right place. And so it has been a little bit difficult to eat, just because it's like nothing, it doesn't feel super comfortable. I actually feel better with the rubber bands in place. It kind of feels like it's a nice support in a way. So again, that's just something that I was not really aware of or did not expect, but that I've been noticing over the last couple of weeks. Another thing that came up that I did talk about at the very beginning of the recovery is my discolored front tooth that is still kind of an unresolved issue right now. So that tooth was likely damaged a little bit during the surgery just because it lost some blood flow, and it got a little bit discolored. And we haven't really been able to test it or do anything to see if it needs a root canal, just because my teeth have been so numb. And so my dentist did not want to do anything about it yet. So I'm going to be seeing her again next week to do some further testing or just reevaluate and see where it's at. But from what I understand, like even if the tooth is not totally dead or like wouldn't necessarily need a root canal, that the only way to like color it or like get it back to normal color would be to actually do a root canal and like color it from the inside. So I'm not really sure what my options are going to be there, or kind of how long this is all going to take to get that tooth back looking like normal. But again, that was something that I totally did not even think about going into the surgery, like literally until I had to sign the waiver beforehand that kind of said all the possible risks. And one of them was that it could like damage teeth. It just wasn't something that had really crossed my mind. And obviously, it's not like a huge deal if I end up having to have a root canal or just like dealing with this one tooth. Like it's just something that I notice all the time now that I have this tooth that's discolored, and it's a little bit annoying. So again, just knowing ahead of time that that's one of the possible side effects or consequences is that things can happen during the surgery that can damage the teeth, and now it's just something I have to continue to deal with as I move forward. One of the other things I've been noticing more recently is just that my gums are really puffy, and especially on the top, which like I think obviously there's that piece that kind of across the top, or that's where they cut the upper jaw. So I'm not surprised that that's maybe a side effect too, is that that's going to be puffy for a while as that inflammation continues to heal. But it's just, I've been noticing it more, I think, because I'm getting more feeling back in my mouth and like those nerves are coming back. So, like when I brush my teeth, I'm just noticing it's a little more sensitive. But it just feels like like, especially my upper gums are like pretty inflamed. I haven't had a chance to talk to my orthodontist or dentist about it and like see if I should be concerned about that at all. But I'm really hoping that that's not going to be, an ongoing problem or anything that could potentially cause issues further down the line. But again, I just was not really thinking about sort of the longer term recovery process and how, like, inside my mouth might just be kind of inflamed for a while and a little bit uncomfortable, especially as I'm getting feeling back and I'm starting to really like notice where those issues are coming up. So that was just another thing that I've been noticing more recently is puffy gums and kind of what that is going to mean going forward or how long that's going to take to kind of totally heal and let that inflammation go back down. Range of motion is another thing that has been on my mind lately. So when I take the rubber bands off to eat, I'm also supposed to do some stretching exercises. Or really, it's just like one stretching exercise where I kind of open my mouth as wide as I can and sort of press it open a little bit to stretch out those muscles, try to get more mobility back. And while I've definitely made progress since the very beginning, I still can really only like open about as wide as like two fingers or a little bit more. I don't have a huge range of motion yet. If I go to the orthodontist or the dentist, they're always kind of like, is that as wide as you can open your mouth? So I know that that can also just take a really long time and be part of just the general healing that, like, until things are more healed, that I'm not going to get a lot more range of motion back. But it does kind of feel like that part has been really slow. And um, just kind of comparing to other people's stories, obviously, that is not super helpful because everybody else's surgery is different from mine. But I would think I was expecting to have a little better range of motion, a little more mobility back by now, and not thinking that that was going to be such a long-term process. But I think that it's just going to take a little bit longer than I was expecting. And the last thing that has been a little bit challenging, or I think maybe unexpected to me, is just kind of being in this place in sort of the middle of the recovery where it is really slow. And I know I have several more months before I'm really going to know what everything looks like or kind of how my bite ends up and all those things. I still have to do all the orthodontic work. Like, we haven't even started back on the orthodontic work yet, and that's going to take several months. And I had definitely heard that, sort of the 3 to 6 month mark is really hard because you don't really know how things are going to end up and you're not totally healed, but it feels like nothing is really changing very much. And I did hear that this can be sort of the most, like, sort of mentally and emotionally challenging part of the recovery process. But I really thought that I was not going to have an issue with that. I think partly I thought that just like, oh, well, I'm going to be so excited about the end result that I'm not going to like really care about, waiting or getting through this hard part. Um, but it has proven to be a little bit harder than I thought. And I think partly that's just because, like, it's hard not to sort of look at your face all the time, and there's mirrors everywhere. I never realized how often we look at ourselves in the mirror until now, and just kind of like I'm feeling it all the time. So it's always kind of on my mind and wondering, how am I going to like this when I get to the very end? Like, am I going to be totally satisfied in the end? And what is my bite going to look like, and how is that going to function? How I'm going to feel about this, the overall, end result when all is said and done. And just kind of being in this place right now where that's a long ways away, and I have to just kind of try not to evaluate too much right now or make a judgment right now of how I'm feeling, because I know that there's still a lot of change left to happen. But it's just kind of, it's hard right now to be waiting, knowing that there's several more months ahead. And so I do think that that is just something to be prepared for if you are getting ready for the surgery, or maybe if you're already in the recovery process, that it is just going to be kind of a slog to get through some of this and having to be really patient. And I feel like I can be super patient when I know that the outcome is something that I'm really looking forward to. But just having some of this uncertainty right now of not totally knowing what I'm going to look like when I'm done, or how everything is going to settle or how everything's going to feel and function. That this is just kind of the hard part. It's just hard to wait. So those are just some of the things that have been on my mind or have been sort of part of my own recovery process that I either wasn't expecting or wasn't totally aware of, or just didn't feel like I was super prepared to handle. So if you are getting ready for this surgery or if you're in the recovery process, I'm sure all of these things are totally normal. I know everybody's experience is going to be different, so you might not experience any of these things, or you might have some of them or other things that come up for you. But just wanted to kind of throw that out there that these are the things that I haven't talked about a lot in some of my other videos, but that have been a little bit challenging or just kind of felt like I was not as well prepared as I could have been to deal with some of these things that have come up. And in my next video next week, I will be doing a little more of an update, but also going to look back a little bit at my health history and some of my longer term health issues and what sorts of things I'm going to be looking for moving forward to see how this surgery affects any of those things and sort of what things I have tried in the past and what things I'm planning to try moving forward, and kind of see how this jaw surgery does affect or play into my overall health and what I'm going to be kind of measuring and tracking going forward. So that will be next week. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up or subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And thank you as always for watching. I really appreciate it. And I will see you guys next time in my video. A bit of an update, but also kind of looking back at some of my health history and health issues and kind of what are the things I'm looking for to